this role, Laura has managed the Language Bank project to create a database of volunteers for translation and interpreting services, and she also collaborates with the Rutgers Health Service Corps, working to promote health equity by translating health-related materials for local communities. Dr. Ramirez has over 15 years of experience as a freelance translator and language processes professional. She is ATA certified in English-Spanish and CCHI certified as a healthcare interpreter. Her research interests focus on translation technology and translation training. So please join me in giving a warm welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm a little bit, I'm not used to speaking in the mic. Okay, so I'm gonna put my, there you go. So welcome everybody. I really thank you because I know this is not the best time after lunch, and I hope, I won't doze you off like with this presentation. So I really appreciate you being here. So my presentation is a presentation of a pilot project that we are just, currently conducting at the university, where we are trying to implement gamification strategies to train healthcare interpreters, as the title says. So, I don't know why this is not. Next. Can you do it on the computer? Yeah, I'm trying with the arrows, but it won't work. It's like frozen. Well, I'll. Want me to go get some help? He went, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So I'll start. I don't know how many of you are based in the US or are familiar with the US system. So as Annalise mentioned, I work at Rutgers in New Brunswick. So we are in a community with like a high number of people who don't speak English as their first language. So in the recent census, I think it was 2019, it was like revealed that we have over 25 million in the US, what we call language, limited English proficiency people. And it's okay. Working. No, it doesn't work. That's I was trying to. It's like frozen.
Is your laptop maybe?
My laptop?
Their laptop.
That's their laptop. That's my laptop. Oh, there you go. It did work now, okay, yeah. Okay, so as I was saying, according to the 2019 census, we have over 25 million people that are limited English proficiency, and that's like an increase of 1 million people with respect to the 2010 census. And if we look closer at the data, we see that with Spanish and Spanish Creole is the biggest group, like the biggest language, and then followed by Chinese, Tagalog, Vietnamese, and Arabic. The important thing here is for healthcare is that I don't know why my presentation is jumping, but sorry. So the important thing here is that for language, like limited English proficiency people, the access to care is like also limited in the sense that it has been demonstrated that these people lack a source of regular service, like a healthcare service. They also are more prone to not receive like annual or regular checks like blood tests or blood pressure or colonoscopies, etc. And this is, there are like many articles about that, but one of the reasons is the lack of interpreters or the lack of appropriate language access measures and policies in place so that they can access these services. So just to give like a closer look to where we are, it's New Jersey. So the little points that you see is like the population that speak or that have like limited English proficiency. And as you can see, especially in the north, we have like a big population of Asian, different like Asian languages, especially like there is a lot of Koreans and a lot of Chinese people, and then other Indo-European languages, and then Spanish is the pink. So you will see that we are kind of like, because I'm also like Hispanic, all over the place, but in lower numbers depending on the region in New Jersey. Specifically in Middlesex, where the university, like the main campus of the university is based, Spanish is actually like one of the biggest languages with 141,689 people speaking Spanish as their main language, and many of them not speaking English at all. So that, of course, poses a problem when accessing any public service and specifically healthcare. So in the States, and probably those who are in the States probably know this, but it's very regulated how interpreters are trained. So there is like two main bodies that certify interpreters, and the Certification Commission for Healthcare Interpreters and the NBCMI, the National Board of Certification for Medical Interpreters. And basically the eligibility is pretty low in the sense that you just have to be 18 years of age, you have to have like a high school diploma, or equivalent from another country, and then you have to be proficient in English or a second language. And this is always what they ask, that you have to have like a 40-hour training. And usually that training is offered like online by multiple, usually private companies, but also like universities offer this type of training. Like slowly we are catching up and also like offering this type of training. So the training includes different aspects and including protocols. Protocols include things like, for instance, how to introduce yourself. So when you go to the encounter, the doctor and the patient, then you have to say things like, I'm the interpreter, I'm gonna be the interpreter in this encounter, everything that you say is gonna be kept confidential, everything that you say is gonna be interpreted, etc. So that's one of the protocols that we teach. Another protocol is that they have to speak in the first person, etc. So there are like, a certain number of protocols that they have to learn. Then the code of ethics, then also how to mediate culturally. This is always contested because culture is always like a delicate, aspect when we are interpreting. So usually the models that these associations promote is what we call strategic mediation. That is pointing out that there is an issue, a cultural issue, and then let the providers or the patient and the provider figure out what's the issue. So we don't really, mediate or explain cultural issues unless there is really like a break in communication. Then, of course, the interpreting modes, which is the most important thing, which is, really mastering the consecutive mode and the simultaneous mode, etc., together with the interpreter skills. Here we talk about note-taking, so we teach like some basics on note-taking. And then advocacy, it's, when there is a need to defend the patient, for instance, in cases, and again, this is also like very limited, in cases of life and death, or, when there is like danger for the patient, then it's mandated that the interpreter mediates. For instance, if there is an error, we see that the patient is misunderstanding the dosage of the medication, and that can cause harm to the patient. Then we would intervene, to make clear there is a misunderstanding, so that the patient doesn't die or doesn't get sicker. The role boundaries, what's my role, the role of the interpreter. This is something that also like causes usually a lot of debate, because a lot of providers, and this is another side that I won't touch today, but a lot of providers think, the interpreter, translate this, or, accompany the patient to do this. And we have to set our roles very clearly to say, no, we're just here to interpret. And then basic, general language access. So the idea of gamifying or, like this training was actually my idea. I was just like, one day I was like, why don't because one of the challenges, and I talk about the challenges, is that we have a lot of, we don't have a lot of opportunities in our training to actually simulate or, imitate how the encounter is. So of course I can use the students and say, you act as the doctor and you act as the patient, but it's not really real. And they don't, the students that act as doctors, they don't master, the discourse, the language of the doctor, and I can script it, but it's not the same. So just a couple of lines about gamification. So it's the use of, game elements in a non-game context, and the main goals for me and, usually of gamification is to drive motivation and reinforce learning. And the benefits is like making classroom more fun and engaging, motivate students to complete the activities that they are sometimes reluctant to. So this was like a way of motivating them, help students focus to be more attentive to what they are learning, and allow them to engage in friendly competition with peers. So I also researched a little bit what was the state of gamification in translation and interpreting, and surprisingly, at least from the literature, I didn't find much. So there is really not much attempts, maybe because it's a crazy idea, I don't know, that's what I'm trying to figure out. But there is really not a lot of attempts to gamify in translation and interpreting training. And I understand like translation might be a little bit more difficult, though there are like some examples, or some attempts like the one by Gutierrez and Olvera about, kind of like bringing the project management or setting the classroom as a group, and then you're the project manager, you're the terminologist, and then you're like working in this kind of like gamified experience where you're getting like, kind of like a closer to industry experience of what it would be like. But apart from that, in interpreting, there were like only 2 articles, actually pretty recently, which means that people are starting thinking about that. One is gamifying audio description training, and one is specifically gamifying of interpreter training, a future perspective. And the most recent article just, outlines like a game that actually doesn't exist, but, explains how a game could be, for training interpreters. So it seems that, from this, it seems that there is, interest, like a slowly interest, and there is maybe potential to use this. So our project, as I said before, the challenge that I had was providing real-life practice for students. Sometimes we have the opportunity to do simulations together with nursing schools or with medical schools, but they are very limited, and then I can bring only 2-3 students, right? Because that's like only one case and one, simulation. So the goal was like to create simulations that resemble a real situation and therefore increase students' motivation. And this is a team because it wasn't just, of course, me alone. So I work with a group called GRID at Rutgers University. They are the group for virtual worlds, and they design games. So Richard Anderson is the director of Virtual Worlds. Mika Gradin is the assistant director, and then Kenny Chen is the creative lead and supervisor, and he's actually the one doing all the art, or at least managing all the art. And then Hank Dalman is my colleague in terms of like healthcare interpreting training. So he's also like a healthcare interpreter. So me and he and me, we were like focusing more on the content, and then we were like working with Richard, Mika, and Kenny for the technical part. So the first thing was like establishing learning goals. So what do we want to do with this video game? Sorry, my PowerPoint just keeps jumping. So the first goal was develop the ability to analyze complex medical interactions, identifying potential ethical challenges and communication barriers. So we didn't want just like to have interactions where they practice terminology and things like that, but we also wanted to include some ethical challenges. Like, for instance, a very typical one is like the patient talks to the interpreter and then says, please don't say that to the doctor, okay? And then what do you do in that scenario? So, and then apply that ethical decision-making skills to real-world interpreting situations, such as when handling confidential information, critically evaluate the interpreter's role in explaining medical documents to patients, deciding whether to cite translate documents themselves or to facilitate the doctor's explanation. So that was another of the things that we included, is that, the doctor asking the interpreter, please explain the patient what it says in this document. And we're actually, we shouldn't be doing that. We should be like site translating instead of, explaining something that we are not experts in. And then create a set of personalized strategies to maintain transparency in interpreting, particularly in scenarios where ethical and professional boundaries are tested, and then practice the main modes of interpretation, consecutive, and practice translating medical terminology. So we worked also, and this is like, before we even started like programming. I didn't program, but the guys did. We work in Miro. I don't know if you're familiar with Miro board. So that was kind of like our project management kind of like a system where we would like say, okay, this is what we want to do. This is like how the game is going to play. This is like the challenges. These are like the characters, etc. And then we decided that as components, we were going to have characters, like a diary, so that students could write after the interaction, they could write their reflections, and then achievements too, mechanics, such as challenges, rewards, feedback, and status, and then dynamics, such as a narrative. Also, we wanted to include some emotions. We wanted also like to include some choices and progression, like the idea that the player is progressing through like a scenario. And as for the design features, it's based on Unity. And again, like the main idea is a simulation, so it's not, like a treasure hunting or anything. It's like a simulation. We're trying to simulate how it would play in a real scenario. So the main purpose is not to entertain, though it's more fun than just, doing it like reading a book or doing it in class. And it tries to accurately simulate a real life situation, and it should be interactive with user experiences, a story, and viewer-oriented story. That means that instead of having the interpreter, like actually in the game, we are the interpreter. So we don't actually see ourselves in the game ever. And the reason for this, we actually discussed this, and I read a lot of literature, but it's on the one side, it's proof that it creates more engaging, like a more engaging experience, because you're the one in control. And then we also consider issues of diversity, in terms like we didn't want anyone to feel misrepresented, like are you a woman, are you a man, like the race. So we were like, you know what? You are the interpreter, so you are not going to see yourself as an avatar in the room. Maybe in the game. So maybe in the future, if we are able to like actually create avatars for like different characters, then maybe we consider the idea of playing, like putting the interpreter in the room. And then the back end, and this is for us, and that was the game, and I'll show right away. So the back end it was very easy for us non-programmers to work with it, because we had like an Excel, it was like Google Sheets, and there we could like try the dialogues and then the different interactions. As you can see, the speaker, the line, the left side, the right side, and the prop means like if they have like a something to write, or like a thing that they have to do something with, the background, etc. So what you're going to see is just a prototype. So I'm sorry, it's not going to be like woo, all whistles and. But so this is what we're working now. So it's it's a dialogue. The patient. First, we introduce like the situation. Maria is a patient who recently had a baby. She's now back for her 6-week postpartum visit. And then the dialogue starts like, good morning, Maria, blah, blah, blah. And then, as I said before, we have like this, this ethical or these moments where the interpreter has to decide something. I have a patient guide here, what I explained before. Could you please explain the guide to her? And then we give the student like a couple of options. And then, this is going to be all with music and, like a little bit more interactive that you see now. These are just like screenshots. Again, like this is another scenario where there is like an ethical conflict. So it says like, please don't tell to the doctor, but sometimes I drink alcohol while I'm breastfeeding, and then the interpreter has to decide, yeah, you don't interpret or you actually say something. And then we actually give feedback. So depending on what the interpreter, like what the student answered, then we're going to give feedback, yeah, that was a good response, or no, that's actually not something that you should do. And here on the top, you can see the diary. So the little notebook there is the diary. And yeah, they can, this is just, again, like the prototype, so there is nothing written yet, but they can like, we can have reflection questions, and then they can also like write ad libitum whatever they feel they learned, etc. And all the data is actually like saved. So as a professor, I can like check what they did, how many hours they spent, etc. And then I can give feedback depending on their reflection and everything. Yeah. So I'm actually almost finished. So the future is one of the things, as you saw, Right now, we only have like the text, but of course, because this is an interpreting game, we have to do the audio part. So we have like the studio already, and then we're gonna hire actors, and then they're gonna like, actually speak. Then we wanna include more gamification strategies, maybe like some, prizes or challenges where it makes like more motivating. And then once the first pilot is finished, then we wanna pilot test it with users, with the students in our case, to gain feedback. And then the goal, like it's probably gonna happen this summer, and then the application of changes, the idea, or applying the changes and then launching the game around fall 2024, so for next semester. As for the future, one thing that we are exploring is actually using AI, so conversational agents. For instance, there is AIME. AIME is actually a conversational agent that imitates doctor-patient communication. So the idea would be like to feed in the game with like dialogues that are automatically generated, patient and doctors, so that it's not like so scripted, which is like the way that it's working now. So we could like, tell the agent, I want you to create like a cardiologist-patient interaction. The patient has these issues, and you're gonna introduce this type of challenges in the game, and then the dialogue would be like automatically generated. And then maybe in the future, I don't know, this is my dream, but like maybe automatic evaluation feedback through speech recognition, so that actually like students speak, that what they interpret is actually saved, and then the AI gives some feedback. The same way that a lot of, at least I haven't tried many, but like these language learning apps work. I've tried ChatGPT, and you can talk, and then ChatGPT allegedly gives you feedback. It's not very good, though. I always say, speak slowlier, and he's like, meh. So we have to evaluate that. So thank you so much. That was our project. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.